Crisis Intervention. Part 3. Restoring Arctic Ice. Arctic sea ice has been increasing rapidly. Many countries received early snowfall. In our last update, we focused on how an extremely rare hurricane named Larry miraculously replenished gigatons of ice lost in Greenland at a time when snow was not anticipated. Now, let us take a look at the volume and extent of ice in the Arctic Sea since Kyrios began restoring ice on August 23, 2021. Arctic Sea ice volume. According to data from the Danish Meteorological Institute, ice volume in the Arctic Sea in 2020 had been the lowest since 2017. The downward trend of the average Arctic Sea ice volume as the years go by is a powerful evidence of rising global temperatures. When Arctic Sea ice volume during the first half of 2021 was lower than 2020's, 2021 was primed to set another record low. However, the dire situation started to take a turn for the better as Kyrios commenced intervention in late August. Arctic sea ice volume rapidly and consistently rose above that of 2020 and 2019 in the second half of 2021. The upswing trend is indeed very encouraging. Arctic sea ice extent. In recent years, the northern sea route has become more easily navigable as global warming resulted in thinner ice. Ice conditions in late October and early November have allowed extensive shipping along the vast Russian Arctic coast. However, by the end of October 2021, large parts of the remote Arctic waters became covered with sea ice. Ships transiting along the northern sea route were caught by surprise, and the sea along the eastern coasts of Siberia froze several weeks earlier than normal. As many as 24 ships became frozen in and had to await icebreakers to break through the 30 centimeters thick ice to make way for them to escape. Officials said that it was the first time in the last 7 years that the sea ice had already frozen so much by this time. Russian officials had earlier forecasted and announced that the route would remain open for the entire month of November. Alexei Lykachayev, the Director General of Rosatom, a company that runs a fleet of nuclear-powered icebreaker ships, said that weather forecasts were inaccurate, as the sea has already frozen in October. This corroborates that Kyrios intervention has indeed altered this year's Arctic weather. This early freezing of Arctic sea ice is reflected in the data from the National Snow and Ice Data Center. In the months following Kyrios intervention, Arctic sea ice extent has continuously maintained at higher levels compared to the years since 2016. Compared with the latest year in 2020, sea ice extent at the end of September 2021 was at 4.9 million square kilometers, compared to 3.9 million square kilometers in 2020, a 25% increase year-on-year. In October, the increase was most evident at nearly 30% more, with the Laptev Sea and the East Siberian Sea along the Russian coast already covered in sea ice. By the end of November, Arctic sea ice extent reached 9.8 million square kilometers, a 10% increase year-on-year. It was also reported that Arctic sea ice froze at a faster than average pace through November. While ice extent gives a good representation of the spread of ice across the Arctic Sea, it doesn't fully reflect the health of the Arctic sea ice. Did you know that in recent years, Arctic sea ice has gotten younger? That's because increasingly more ice doesn't survive the summer melt season. As a result, ice can't accumulate to form multi-year ice, which is more resilient to melting. Today, multi-year ice in the Arctic Sea has almost completely disappeared, replaced by the first-year ice that forms and melts completely every year. Some scientists even estimate that the Arctic could be ice-free in summer as early as 2030. Weather in the Northern Hemisphere. When Kyrios commenced intervention to increase ice volume in the Arctic in August 2021, Kyrios also forewarned that in the process of cooling the Earth, the Northern Hemisphere would experience colder winters, especially in countries near the Arctic Circle. This is inevitable as our planet is overheated and urgently needs to be cooled down, in order to bring Earth's balancing systems back to an equilibrium state. This will also avert even more disastrous events that will happen around the world. Let us now take a quick look at the weather conditions of some countries in the northern hemisphere from the time Kyrios started restoring ice. China. Beijing ushered in a quick freeze weather in 2021. At the dawn of October 17th, temperatures in many places fell below the freezing point more than half a month earlier than usual, the lowest in 52 years. On November 7th, 33 stations in northeastern China recorded snowfalls that broke historical records for the same period. Snow depth in some places even doubled the records. Korea. Seoul's first snow of 2021 arrived on November 10th, 30 days earlier than the previous year. United States, Alaska. In November, a cold snap swept across most of the Alaska state and set daily record lows. Some locations even experienced its coldest November in 80 years. Climate scientist Rick Thoman said that the cold air had helped create sea ice growth in the Bering Sea and Bristol Bay, and that early season ice growth was the best since 2012. According to another weather researcher, Brian Bretschneider, it was relatively early to see such cold given the current global climate situation, and much more exceptional to be setting low temperature records. Scandinavia. Several countries in the Nordic region also broke the record for low temperatures. The first week of December in Helsinki, Finland, was the coldest in 84 years. In Nymacka, Sweden, temperatures dipped to minus 43.8 Celsius, the lowest December temperature in 35 years. Canada. In Canada, snowfall usually occurs between December to March, but in 2021, some areas experienced snowfall in November and even as early as September. Russia. On December 6th, St. Petersburg broke the 1893 severe winter record. Temperatures in the northern capital fell to minus 20.9 degrees Celsius, breaking a daily record set 128 years ago. Rising temperatures in the Arctic have caused sea ice to melt rapidly during summer, giving some powerful nations the opportunity to exploit its resources and the Arctic shipping route. However, the melting polar ice caps will bring about even greater negative consequences for humanity. As sea ice and glaciers melt and the oceans warm, oceanic currents will continue to upset the world's climate patterns, triggering extreme cold, intense heat, droughts, floods, hurricanes, and other extreme weather events, leading to massive loss of life and property. Such disasters will make the lives and livelihoods of people around the world devastated by COVID-19 even more difficult. As polar ice and snow are melting very quickly, it is an uphill task to restore ice and snow to the polar regions. Hence, we should not take Kyrios' painstaking interventions for granted. Kyrios stresses that interventions to restore balance are only temporary measures to help delay more severe catastrophes from happening, alleviating only the symptoms but not the root causes of disasters. Saving Earth and saving life require all world leaders and people making a commitment to work together to cease burdening and damaging our Earth. With Kyrios' efforts, 2021 swiftly became the year with the highest Arctic sea ice extent in recent years. Data from the Danish Meteorological Institute also showed that in December, Arctic sea ice extent was the highest in the past 6 years, since 2016. This surprising upward trend certainly did not happen by chance. Will the Arctic sea ice extent from January 2022 onwards continue to be higher than those of previous years? We will continue to monitor the results till Kyrios' Arctic intervention comes to an end in March 2022. In the meantime, Kyrios has also embarked on the most difficult and challenging intervention to date on November 20, 2021. That is saving Antarctic ice. Let us also look forward to news about Antarctica.
Please like and share our video. Support and subscribe to our channel. No Earth, no life. Save world, save life, save yourself.